Hi, welcome everybody. I'm Julie Clary, the creative director at Mitchell Fabrics. I'm super excited to talk to two very talented ladies today about a very key partner in our interior design industry, and that is the workroom. A designer's best friend, as I like to refer to them. So, designers, stay tuned. This is just as much for you as it is for workrooms. We are going to hear some really great information, great insight, and great perspective on how all of us can be better partners together. So let me introduce to you Vida Figovska, top left on your screen. Vida is owner of Vitalia Inc., window treatments in the Philadelphia area. And at the bottom, we have Laura Nelson of So Nice, custom window treatments and soft home furnishings from West Lafayette, Indiana, in our neck of the woods. So before we get started, Vida, just give the audience a quick overview of your company and the services that you provide.
Sure. So Vitalia Inc. Window Treatments is an all-encompassing, one-stop go-to resource exclusively for interior designers as it relates to window treatments and complementing products. We are a comprehensive measuring, fabricating, installation, and project managed service. And I'd like to kind of think of us as an extension of the designer's team, and that's what I usually tell them. I say to my existing designers, I say to my prospective designers, I say, think of me as if you had a full-time window treatment person on your own staff, except that you don't have to pay for a full-time window treatment person on your staff because you have someone off-site, someone with full product knowledge, expertise, skills, everything that you need to know to execute your project. And so we try to take everything that comes with window treatments, and by that I mean all this stress and all that care for detail that is so pertinent to our business. We try to take all of that off of their plates, off of the designer plate, and put it onto ours, so that they don't have to wake up in the middle of the night with what I call 2 a.m. pings, wondering if they did this, that, and the other thing, if they measured the bracket deduction correctly, or did they order the right amount of rings, or did they calculate the return on the drapery correctly. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. All they have to do is to come up with a beautiful design for the space, to give us some direction on the type of window treatment they want at the window, and we take care of the rest because we know how, we know when, we know why, we'd have all the product knowledge, and we can execute it flawlessly and make them look like heroes at the very end. That's what our job is.
Right. Well, definitely a designer's best friend. So that's awesome.
I'm going to use that, Julie. I think I'm going to steal that. I'm going to be like, I'm your go-to one-stop designer's best friend kind of company.
Right. It's the truth. Laura, tell us about your company.
I am a one-person workroom. I do both retail and wholesale work with designers, and I also work directly with the clients, homeowners. Like Vida said, when I'm working with a designer, we're working as a team. I take care of all the details. What I like to say is, one of my taglines is, details makes the difference. I'm worrying about I'll ask all the right questions that they may not be familiar with to ask. Clearance, deduction, if there is an air vent, things that I've experienced that maybe they're not familiar with or not experienced with to even know. And I usually do this, ask the questions, depends on if the homeowner is there with them, ask them directly or quietly, or ask before we even get to the homeowner's house, what needs to be done, what are your expectations? What do you want me to do? I won't say anything if needed. Or, I will offer advice if needed. If I'm working with a designer, they're running the show. Be as much visible as visible as they want me to. When I'm working with a homeowner, I ask them directly all those questions. What are your needs, your expectations, how I can help them, attain those goals, and kind of go from there.
Yeah, you're really, both of you are alluding to, you need to be just an invaluable resource and tool to that designer and to the end client and when you work retail. So I wanted just, you both have been in the business and have been very successful. We've seen so much change in this industry really over the last 10 years. Let's just talk about, what the internet has done to the interior design industry. And that has, that challenges the designer, which then has an impact on the custom workroom. Talk about what you have seen, over the years, Vida.
So, Julie, for us, all these changes have translated to how we can be of even more value to our designers. What is it that we can do that makes their job easier, takes the stress off of them, saves them time, makes them more knowledgeable? So it's all about how can we make them look like hero, like I said before. It's everything that we do is to build them up, because we understand that their jobs are very, very difficult. I mean, yes, in the last 10 years, there's been many changes, and the 10 years prior to that, there have been changes. I mean, we're constantly going, we well know the only thing that's constant is change, right? So, so that cycle will continuously be there. But the one thing that remains constant for me is asking myself, how can I continue to be of value to my designers? What can I do to make them look better, their lives easier, and just bring value in whichever way I can? And of course, ultimately, that translates to the level of service that we provide. And that's why even in our description, we use the words like concierge level, one-stop shop, comprehensive, all-encompassing. So we truly understand that their jobs are so difficult. I mean, the amount of detail that they have to retain, the amount of information and knowledge that they need to possess, the number of people that they need to talk to on any given project is mind-boggling. I mean, just talking about it kind of gives me a headache, and that's why I personally could never be a designer. I don't claim to be a designer. I have no aspirations to be a designer, because I think that job is, quite frankly, way too hard. and for my end, I just say, how can I make them look better, feel better? How can I make their lives just a little bit easier? And that's what makes us different from a lot of other companies. We continuously look for improvements in the way we present that service to them.
Sure. Yeah. Laura, what about you? Because you've shifted your business also to retail, and so now you are wearing that designer / workroom hat. So how has that transition been for you?
I've been in business for over 25 years, and at the beginning, like Vida said, there is no way. I knew how to sew. I knew where to get information to learn how to make new things. But over the years, I've picked up the confidence and the experience and the knowledge to help homeowners directly, to work with them on what they need. So it's shifting. I mean, some days I have to remember which hat I'm wearing to, offer, but all of that has helped me help the designers more as well. The more knowledge I get, the more of service I can be. And it's all about making the homeowner look good with a good choice of fabrics or what their home looks like. Also helps, like Vida said, again, making the designer look good.
Right.
If they don't look good, I don't look good.
Right.
I mean, bottom line is, and then they don't hire me anymore. So that doesn't go well either.
Right.
So, yeah.
So do either of you, have you seen any changes in the designer? I mean, I look at, there's a lot of designers today, the young new designers, they're coming into this industry in kind of unconventional or non-traditional ways. So their knowledge base is different. And I'm sure you experience that. Every designer is different. Every client is different. How do you handle this kind of wide varying degrees of education? And I know, Vida, it sounds like you've made that, very integral part of your business, but how do you deal with that? And then let's, really frame that in how can we help the designer? What advice can you give the designer? How can you help them, educate them to have more knowledge so they make better decisions when they're on site with the client?
So I think, Julie, you hit the nail on the head there a second ago. With these younger designers, they're really coming into the industry with very little knowledge of window treatments. And we kind of internally among workrooms and in sort of in the back end of the industry, we refer to it quite a bit. Unfortunately, they are not being taught anything about window treatments in their design programs. I mean, that's a common fact. So when they enter the industry, whether they work for a firm off the bat or they start something of their own, their understanding of window treatments is very, very minimal. And so that definitely presents a challenge for sure. And because the understanding is minimal, the appreciation for the window treatments is probably a lot less than from some of the older designers. Or some of the more experienced designers. So if, 30, 20, even 10 years ago, we saw a lot of multi-layer treatments, a lot of really beautiful textures and gorgeous fabrics. Now what we're seeing is a lot of simplicity. They just want things simple. They want things understated. If they want anything on the windows at all. And, that's kind of sort of an elephant in the industry in and of itself. As I look through Instagram and some publications and look at designer work, some prefer not to treat windows at all, and that's a conscious choice. And so that actually poses a big risk to us as workrooms and to fabric vendors and us as an industry. So that it's definitely a challenge. Now, how do we overcome it? I think the only way to do it is by educating, and you can educate even either one-to-one or one-to-many. And so one-to-one is what Laura and I do on an everyday basis when we meet with our designer clients, and one-to-many is what the three of us are doing today, right? So we're promoting the value of window treatments and the value of this industry as a whole. And it's also what Luann Nigera and I do on our Window Treatment Friday podcast. Actually, as a matter of fact, right before we got on, we just finished recording our next episode. So it is speaking and just really making the designers understand how a window treatment can truly change the look of the project. So that's like the aesthetic of it, if you will. And then there's, of course, the business side of it too. And if we look at our businesses as businesses and not as hobbies, then we want to make sure that they're financially successful. And there is absolutely no doubt that adding window treatment will add to that financial success.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Laura, do you have anything, to add to that?
Yeah, a lot of the designers that I do work with, they defer to me to the window treatments. Like Vita said, they're not learning that in interior design. What they are learning is what's needed: electrical, plumbing, how to knock out a wall. I can't even imagine learning all that. So they're not learning textiles, fabric, window treatments at all. There might be adding a couple throw pillows here and there, but the ones that I do work with value window treatments and understand I've heard it said before, so window treatments for a room is kind of like why a woman wears makeup or jewelry. It finishes the look, it enhances the beauty. I love seeing before and after pictures. When I go in and do window treatments, I'll take a picture of the room as is. It might be gorgeous furnishings, gorgeous furniture, and then you put up a window treatment, side panels, shades, it doesn't matter how many layers, and you stop and you look at the two pictures and you think, oh yeah, it really needed that.
More like, yes, it needed that.
Right. But it's just like, wearing the right earrings with an outfit or the right color lipstick, you don't need it. Nobody needs that, but it enhances, it finishes the look. It just makes you feel better.
Let's just talk about some of the biggest challenges you have in your industry with fabrication. What is it, is there some recurring challenge that you have as Workroom, whether it's a particular fabric or whether it's a particular type of treatment? What is it that you find most challenging? That if you have this moment here,
where would you like us to start?
I know we could spend hours talking about this.
I mean, obviously, the one that comes to mind, just like almost unquestionable, is 100% linen.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing.
I'm sorry, Laura.
Right.
Okay, good.
No,
so we're on the same page.
But it's everywhere. I mean, I'm in Indiana. You're in Philadelphia. I don't think it doesn't matter where you are in the country. Linen, what people like and what their expectations are. Sometimes they're worlds apart. So yeah.
And it becomes our job to educate the designer and ultimately the consumer too, if we're, privy to the end consumer, if we're in the meetings at the same time and all together. But it really becomes our job to tell them exactly what will happen and what the consequences are of picking 100% linen. And the thing is, though, I remember a few years ago, before linen became as prevalent as what it is right now, I remember not doing that. I didn't tell them that it will grow. I didn't tell them that it would shrink, because I'm like, I will make it work. Don't say anything. Don't put the negative spin on the meeting. Just make it work. I don't know how, but just make it. Vita, you're going to make it work. You're going to make it work. Well, I mean, I'm a magician, but I'm not that magical. So it only takes one job and one mistake and, one thing to go wrong where you're like, you know what, humidity is a fact. And there's nothing you can do about it. Just like gravity, that's a fact too. And I tell that to people all the time. So with gravity and the change in temperature, the fabric will grow. One day you will find it on the floor, and the next day you will find it 2 inches off the floor. If that's what you're willing to live with, great. Let's go for the beautiful linen that you fell in love with. But if you have a specific engineer type mind, then it won't work for you.
Well, it's like, Vita, you said, early on, you thought you could make it work. Well, early on, when I was saying I didn't have the confidence, I was thinking, okay, I know how to sew. I'm the workroom person and the fabricator. You're the designer. You should know this because you're the designer, you're the expert. And then I started really realizing after a few jobs that went like this, they need my help. They don't always know fabric and the characteristics and what should go where. So that came with experience, but it was, linen. Linen.
Well, and you really, you bring up a great point. It's having that knowledge for a designer before they even show the fabric. So showing the right options as well. And even just in our company, we are challenged by getting those questions all the time. So we've really taken it upon ourselves to train our customer service, our account managers, and ask the questions on the phone, because as you all know, you don't want to get that phone call after it's all been fabricated to say, there's something wrong with this fabric, it's stretching. Well, it's 100% linen. And, so having that knowledge, and we find that we are trying to help designers and give them the information that we have about certain fabrics as well.
I think that's so wonderful, Julie. I really have to commend you and Mitchell's Fabrics on doing that. I'm not sure if I know of another company who does that quite, because you almost become the first line of defense. And so at that point, the designer will have heard that there's a potential issue. So if he or she decides to go forward with it, then it will be no surprise that then the fabricator will say the same thing.
Right.
So you'll be making our jobs a little bit easier, and I, for one, so appreciate it.
Well, we're certainly trying to, and we've learned in the past. We've had great particular pattern, but we have found we've had challenges with it. And Laura knows a challenge in particular, which is flaring. And
Mhm.
that seems to be an issue that our designers experience. And we'll get a call and no, the fabric isn't defective. It just may not have been the best choice
Right.
for, those panels on a traversing rod. And over time, they lose their memory and they're just more prone to flaring. So those kinds of things we've experienced those, and we said, okay, we need to start identifying patterns that, could have some potential problems in certain applications. And being transparent with the designer when they call. And so but again, it all comes back to knowledge, and knowledge of textiles, knowledge of fabric, what works, what doesn't.
Right.
So,
And that knowledge comes from experience, and experience,
absolutely.
unfortunately, comes from mistakes.
Yes.
absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Right.
One of the things that I think this industry, I'm switching gears just a little bit, one of the biggest challenges I see in this industry, and from talking to our customers and other designers, is there is an aging out of workrooms. We get phone calls all the time. I need a workroom. I need a good workroom. My workroom closed its doors. The owner was, 70, 80 years old. They're not doing it anymore. How do we get young people interested in this craft?
I think for starters, this mask project, jumping ahead, people are realizing they don't know how to sew, or they do know how to sew, but they don't know how to operate the machine. So hopefully there'll be a new interest, because people realize how important it is to know how to sew. That's part of it. I find young people, and they have an interest in sewing. Oh, do you want to come visit my workroom? Do you want to work with me for, this is what I do. This is a real job. It's not a hobby. It's a real job. I'm making money at this. I'm making a living. Yeah, it's hard. I know when I first started 25 years ago, there were 2 or 3 other workrooms in my area within probably a 25-mile radius. Both have since retired. There's now a new person in my area I found out about, and I've been reaching out to her, share resources. Who do you use for lining? Where do you know about Mitchell Fabrics? Do you know about this and that? It's education. And I know long time ago, people were very secretive about what they did. They didn't want to share information. I'm willing to tell everything, just to encourage people to get involved and to know more, and where you can find out more information, and where you can find these resources. So
right, yeah, that's what we need. And it does seem that there's so much more of that open shariness, and certainly some of these social media groups, and Vita, certainly what you're doing, obviously.
Yes. I love the podcast. I remember when I first time I heard it, I was driving somewhere, and I had to pull off the side of the road into a gas station, I think it was, and sent you and Luann an email or a thing on your, I communicate with you somehow. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for doing this.
You did. And thank you for doing that. That's incredible.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I tell people to listen to it. It's very informative.
Yeah. Thank you. I really appreciate, we truly, listen, Luann has done over 500 episodes over the last 4 years. I've only done 9 with her. So, but on the 9 that I have, we've poured our heart and soul into those. Right. And the response that we're hearing is so positive, and exactly what you said, how much it's needed and what great information and how informative and educational. And, what we're trying to do with it is really, there's so many different benefits of it and strategies there. We're promoting the workrooms, we're promoting the designers, we're promoting the industry, we're promoting the collaboration between the designer and the workroom. We're promoting the fabric companies. Everything that we're doing all together through that promotion, we're elevating the status of us all. And it's like, how does it go? The rising tide rises all ships. So that's ultimately that's ultimately the goal of it all. And of course, with tidbits, like I said, of some specific industry knowledge on returns and rods and rings and fabric specifications and all that stuff. But we have some fun in it as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Good.
But I think as far as the education goes, a long time ago, there was the Custom Home Furnishings Academy, and that closed. Susan Woodcock has done a huge service to the industry by starting Workroom Tech in Tryon, North Carolina. I think she's on her 5th or 6th Custom Workroom Conference coming up in October. And there I was kind of surprised. The past 2 years, I've noticed an increase in younger people. People I've known, usually it was like a great big reunion. Hi, how are you? You meet all your friends again. There were so many people I didn't know, and they were a lot younger than I was. That's really, really encouraging. And as far as podcasts go, Susan also does one with Ciel de Guglielmo, 30 Minutes with Workroom Tech. It's a lot of really, some of it's very, very basic information, but it's really good information for if you're learning how to do something. So between the 2 podcasts and their sources online and conferences we can go to, and hopefully we can continue to go to them live and not virtual, like what we're doing now, is getting together. I see an uptick in that, and people are hungry for information and learning how to do things. So
sure. You hit on a point that I want to talk about, and you talked about, if it's just you and you have more business, it's longer lead times. And I think there's another challenge to this industry. I feel like we have these 2 colliding worlds of the consumer wants everything in 3 days or in a week, and the custom interior design industry just can't move that fast. And if you want something made to measure and all that custom detail, and you have fewer people who can do the work, those lead times continue to get stretched. So I feel like not only does the designer probably spend a lot of time managing expectations, you as workrooms are managing those expectations of the designer. So talk about that in your business, Vita.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I think any business, design or otherwise, I think communication and managing expectations is pretty much key to any kind of success at the end. So we are usually very upfront with our clients and with our designers. For me, for Vitalia Inc., our regular lead times are 4 to 6 weeks. So if we can do it sooner, then we look like heroes to our designer, and the designer looks like a hero to their customer. And sometimes during really busy times, it may go a little bit longer. We try not to have it go past the 6 weeks as much as we can. And of course, we also have to be very particular and strict, I suppose, in when does that 4 to 6 weeks start. And for us, it always starts from the receipt of the deposit and the receipt of the fabrics and trims, whatever, all the elements that go into that window treatment. So just because we have an email that says, yes, the project is a go, or we got a phone call, or there is some kind of communication says, hey, the project is definitely a go, the clock doesn't really start ticking until we have those 2 things in hand.
Sure.
Right.
Laura, what about you? What are your lead times? Because, when you are just one person, I've heard a lot of designers tell me that, their local workroom is now, saying I'm 8 to 10 weeks. Sometimes it's even longer. And that's hard. That's hard for a designer to have to communicate that.
Right. It's normally an average. I tell people 6 to 8 weeks. Usually I can get it done before then, but you want to under promise and over deliver. So 6 to 8 weeks. Last year, oh gosh, June, July, and August were crazy busy, and I was telling people 10 to 12 weeks.
Okay.
But yeah, it takes time.
Right. Absolutely. I have a question just regarding technology and just how much has technology affected the workroom industry? I mean, it's such a handcrafted industry, but obviously use machines. Has technology changed much? And are there machines that are making your job easier so things can get done faster? I mean, just... Talk to us about that.
For us, it's mostly on the business side. I mean, as far as the workroom, you know, we still have your basic straight stitch. We have your blind hammer. You know, we have your basic 4 machines that everybody else has, I think.
Yeah.
So on the business side, however, we have really utilized technology quite a bit. And so something as basic as taking measurements and taking notes. So if 10 years ago we used good old-fashioned paper and pencil, now we use an iPad, and there are some great measurement apps, and where you can take a picture of the space, you can put measurements right on top of that picture, you can include your notes, you can upload it onto whatever file sharing software you use, be that Google Drive or OneDrive, Dropbox, Evernote. So from that standpoint, at the very beginning of the process and the appointment, we use technology to capture all of that information. And then as we go through the process of fabricating and ordering and receiving and confirming and communicating with the customer, for us at Vitalia Inc., we use a very robust project management system where we capture all of our projects. We kind of parse them into the different steps, and they walk through the process of whether it's measurement, then estimate, then fabrication, installation, and whatever other steps that need to happen. And then within each steps, there's also sub-steps that need to happen, and we capture that in this project management system. And what it allows us to do is give visibility to all the parties involved in the process without having to either exchange too many phone calls or too many emails, so it doesn't crowd out our email box. So the system allows us to generate reports. So per designer, we work with about 25 active designers right now. So every designer twice a month receives a report with all of their pending projects. And so this project management system has been really quite key for me, for my business, as I'm scaling. Now, I'm not sure if it's as relevant for someone who is a one-person operation, but as soon as you start growing to 2 people and multiple people in the office, I think that that's really key.
Great.
Yeah. Yeah, the technology, like Vita said, we've all got the same basic machines. Some of my best machines, they were made in New York, you know, in the 1940s, 35, 40. My button press, had to find the serial number for it to get parts, 1928. So, you know, technology's not there for our machines in the workroom. Yeah.
I want to talk about virtual design, because, you know, that's really what there's so much information on there, resources to help designers, you know, navigate this kind of new world of designing virtually. And I was reminded of that when you talked about, Vita, you know, just the tools and how you can just take a picture of the room. But what kind of advice can you give designers who are venturing into this? You know, I mean, taking a measurement virtually for a window treatment can be a very scary thing, because you can't be off an inch or a few inches. So describe your thoughts on how that can be successful for designers, and any insight you might have for them.
Right. So virtual consultations have kind of seen a rise, I think, about 5-10 years ago. And then I find that they've certainly gotten some bad rep, that maybe they're not high-end enough and not affluent enough. And what happened with this shutdown that we're experiencing right now as we're recording this, virtual consultations have really seen its rise again. And what I'm hoping is that the window treatments are part of both of these designs. And it's really interesting that Luann and I, in this latest episode that we just recorded, we talked exactly about that, how no matter what kind of design you do, e-design for do-it-yourselfers or e-design for full-blown custom jobs, the window treatments should absolutely be the necessary part, an integral part of that design, because no project in my, completely unbiased opinion, no project can be finished unless the window is treated, number one. And number two is, of course, only with that belief, then that leads into how do we sustain ourselves now as businesses, and not just survive but thrive through this. And of course, window treatments are, quite a profitable part of any design business. And so I think that's important to talk about it. Of course, we always want to be in service to the project. That's first and foremost. And then if we're on the same page about that, then we need to remember that these are not hobbies, these are our businesses.
Right.
So, and then as far as taking measurements, that's, it's a tricky situation sometimes. I'm not sure if I would ever trust an inside mount, inside measure, unless the customer really wants to say, I take full responsibility for it. Right. But any kind of outside type of measure, we live in a different reality. We have been in the last 6 weeks. And if you had asked me 6 weeks ago, would I ever trust an outside measure? I would have sat here and said, absolutely no. Right. And now that we have, things are no longer black and white, and we have to recognize a lot of grayness that we're going through right now. And, there could be a situation that I would trust an outside mount measure. And having said all that, what I would absolutely trust is if a customer could send me some general, very, very rough measurements and pictures. And based on those pictures, if the windows are fairly, standard, there's a standard single window, there's a fairly standard double window, the sliders are fairly standard, the French doors are fairly standard. So you can, and even if they weren't, we've been in the business and industry long enough to kind of guesstimate what those measurements are. We can ask our designers and our retail customers how tall their ceilings. And so based on those very rough measurements, we can absolutely give them ballpark estimates for the window treatments. And that takes the process fairly far. So with that ballpark estimate, let's say it's $2,000 or if it's $5,000, right there and then, we know whether we are aligned with their budget. And if you think about it, it can really save us a lot of commute time, a lot of unnecessary conversations. If we're not aligned at the very beginning, then that 1 inch difference, and certainly not a quarter of a difference, and sometimes a foot of a difference would make that much of an effect on the project. There's no way that a quarter of an inch or even a foot will take a project from $5,000 to $2,000. What will is a different product, a different design, and a certain difference in the spec. And that's a conversation. And the conversation can be had just like the one we're having right now. It can be had virtually, it can be had face-to-face virtually or voice-to-voice via the phone, but not necessarily person-to-person like we used to. Right. And so the way I think that we were so absolutely sure of our business models and how we ran things and the processes, they've really become quite in question over the last 6 weeks. And I, for one, am really excited about the possibilities for efficiency and the possibilities for how to be even a better, to be a better service to the client through these virtual means.
Absolutely. Right.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about how you all both feel about, where we are going to be headed once we kind of get through this. What do you see as the future for interior design? I mean, do you think there's going to be a big uptick? How are you feeling, Vita?
I think we're all very hopeful. We're all very hopeful that from everybody cooped up in their houses for the last 6 weeks, we have all seen so many things wrong with our houses, and myself included, and the things that we want to improve and make better. So from that standpoint, I think we're all very hopeful that there's definitely some demand that hasn't even been there, actually, because if you think about it, all those busy people who have been out to work and not spend 12 hours a day during the day in the sunlight, seeing that awful crack here and there, or so that's actually, that's hope for brand new demand that we wouldn't have counted on. So if you think about the fact that you have people who are stuck at home and are seeing all the things wrong, then you have people who have always wanted to do something even before this, and now they even want to do it even more, and they have the financial means to do it. So between these three things, I am hopeful that our industry will certainly persevere through this, and we will come out on top.
Good. I have to agree too.
Yeah,
Laura,
absolutely.
anything to contribute to that? Or
everyone's home now. Their neighbors are home now.
mm-hmm.
It's like, maybe we need more privacy. Maybe
That's
we
right.
do need window treatments there.
Right.
Yeah. So
good. Well, I love to hear that, because we at Mitchell Fabrics want to help
right?
you all sell
Yes.
more fabric.
I have to remain hopeful. I am an optimist.
I definitely want to have some advice for designers, because again, I think, I go back to, designer workroom, that relationship is so important. And I'd like for you to think about what advice, if you could tell a designer today, what would be that key piece of advice you would want to give a designer to help, bridge the gap, whether it's in knowledge or information, or what can just create the best designer workroom relationship based on your experience?
So I think what this shutdown has taught us is to slow down a little bit and just take 5 minutes to kind of chill a bit, and it has taught us to do that, and it has given us the opportunity to do that. In as tragic as it is, sometimes I feel like it was the universe's way to say, people, you're not listening to me, I'm going to show you how it is. I think we all needed that. And so because we have this opportunity to connect with each other more, when we start going back out there in whichever slow way each state opens up, I kind of don't want us to forget that feeling of closeness in a way, and connectedness, and reaching out to each other. Because for me personally, that is exactly what has been happening in the last, I can't say 6 weeks, because it did take a few weeks to kind of get used to this new normal, but I can confidently say that for the last 3 weeks or so, I have been actively reaching out to my existing customers. I have been actively reaching out to my prospects too, and really connecting with them. And I've been doing that through virtual window treatment lunch and learns, and that's an opportunity to truly learn about window treatments, because I'm giving a ton of value and a ton of actual content and information, but it's also an opportunity to connect, to just learn about each other, to see if there's chemistry, to see if we click, to see if you like someone. I mean, sometimes it's just as basic as that. And also, another kind of creative thing that I've done is I thought back to how I started this business, and it was about 15 years ago, and I quit a corporate job, and I really knew very little about window treatments, but most importantly, I didn't know anyone who could send me clients. I didn't have a rich uncle who could say, here's a brand new development on your planet, do all the window treatments there. And so what I did, I woke up every day and I said, who can I meet today? Who can I call today? And I picked up the phone and I cold called people, and I invited them to lunches. I invited them to coffees, and I went out to as many networking events as I possibly could. And I extended my hand, and we shook hands, and I said, I am Vida. I do window treatments. How can I help you? How can I be of value? And so I thought to myself, if that's how I started a brand new business from the ground, I can surely do it now, 15 years later, and look back at what I know works, your good old-fashioned grassroots bootstrap marketing. And so I just started reaching out to people, and I sent them emails or made phone calls, and I said, we can't go to Starbucks and have an actual coffee, so let's have a virtual coffee. Designers don't necessarily look for new resources unless they have a problem or unless they have a need.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is the time where we have the time to and the opportunity to look outside of our immediate circle of resources and educate ourselves on what else is out there without having that immediate problem or the immediate need. And so to answer, that was a long way of answering your question, I realize, but to say what is my advice is expand your reach, expand your network. Just because you have a window, let's say workroom right now who you're happy with, that's great, that's wonderful. Nobody wants to take business away from them. So my advice is to continue to expand your network of trusted industry partners.
Great advice.
Yeah.
Great advice.
Yeah, and as far as reaching out and connecting with people, is join the Chamber of Commerce, Business Networking International at BNI, WCAA, Window Coverings Association of America. Meet people, connect, communicate, network.
Right. And I want to add that both of you are very involved in industry groups. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get all of these groups that you're both affiliated with or you've participated in, and we'll include that at the end of this video because it's so important. And I do think some designers can feel lost. How do you find workrooms? Sometimes it can be hard if you move into a new city, and how do you connect with installers, or there's so many good groups and both of you are a part of those. So I commend you for all your efforts and your commitment to those.
Thank you.
Well, ladies, I think it's time we're going to wrap up, but I just want to tell you how much I enjoyed this. It was just such great information. I appreciate all that you are contributing to this industry. And again, a designer is only as good as the people, behind them, and workrooms are just key. So it's clear you two both service your clients very well. So
thanks a lot, Julie. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.